well. So we'll make sure we have that. And Charles, this recording will be available in the Sales Class platform, and I'll also send you a copy of it as well.
Okay, good. Yep, wonderful.
And so just so everybody knows too, we're in a community of sharing. So we will definitely share everybody's, I think we just have everybody's email addresses because we're not hosting this meeting as a webinar, we're hosting it as a meeting. So just so everybody knows, Charles was invited into the LinkedIn group, and he will also be following up with you, as will I. We'd love your feedback on these sessions, as well as joining the SalesClass AI platform. Believe it or not, we're still relatively new with all of it, so it's kind of fun. Paula, did you have a good weekend?
I did. It was very, very nice.
Nice.
So got a lot of work done.
I love weekends like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
just a lot of progress.
Oh, even better.
Yes.
Mark Heinen, how are you?
I'm good.
How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just trying to stay cool here in California and avoid the wildfires.
Seriously, I don't blame you. It's kind of crazy these days. So what is it, like the 12 plagues of 2020, right? Although I think we're on plague number 20 at this point.
Keeps growing.
It just keeps growing, right? Between COVID, murder hornets, vampire fish, fires, right?
Multiple hurricanes in the Gulf.
Hurricanes, the Dust Bowl, the economy.
Yeah. The election year. I can't even let my kids watch TV, right? Because a lot of what's going on, they would all get in trouble for. So like because we don't talk like that. Don't you know? All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Dionne Mischler. I'm one of the co-founders of SalesClass.ai. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to welcome you to our very second Sales Class live session, and we are super fortunate enough to have Charles Fellingham join us today. Charles' background is amazing. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to his LinkedIn profile in the chat feature so you guys can all take a look at that. He's absolutely amazing, brings a wealth of knowledge and experience. And one of my favorite hobbies that he has is one of my favorite singers. So Charles, we have to make sure we weave that into the conversation today.
Okay, we will. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. And so today what we're talking about is coaching high performers. And again, Charles and I were chatting before folks had joined us, and we all know this is a hot topic and something we should all do. And it's interesting why sometimes it goes the way of the dodo. But I will stop there for sure. And Charles, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you for being here, everybody. And thank you so much for leading our very second Sales Class live session. We appreciate it.
Well, awesome, Dionne. Thank you so much. And lovely. The way you set it up is just textbook. I coach, presenters on Zoom and live, and that was just perfection. So terrific. Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. If we have our way, the next hour is going to be fast-paced and fun and interactive, and you'll look at your watch at the end of the hour and say, I don't know where the time went, but I can't wait to use what I've just learned, because this is all about your ability to be able to coach high-performing salespeople. And so I really am interested, before we get into this, knowing what your particular leadership role is, why you came to this particular workshop. So I'm going to just go down the list and ask each of you to help me with that. And Paula, since you jumped on first, why don't you go ahead and be first? Tell us a little bit about your role as a leader of salespeople.
Sure. So thank you. I lead a team of about 30 people. We sell in the distribution space, and it's an inside sales team. So you've got to be quick, efficient, and really going. I also lead 3 managers. So, leading managers to frontline is a little bit different in the aspect of what you're asking them to do. But I'm here because, we have some really, really great frontline leaders and frontline salespeople, but we also have a few that, now moving home and remotely, they're kind of sinking.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm confident that you'll get some techniques, best practices, tactics to allow you to elevate that team's performance. Thank you, Paula. How about you, Yasu? Tell us about your role as a leader. You can come off mute. Susan, yeah, please.
I work for Sparta Systems, US company, Sparta Systems, and I'm located in Japan.
Yes.
I'm alone here in Japan. I worked with APAC members from India and Singapore right now. As a pre-sales, I worked with account executive from Singapore. Mainly, I focused on Japan market and also several Asian countries as my say customers right now. So I need to brush up my sales skill right now. Thank you.
Well, excellent. Yeah, so that's why we're here is to brush up our skills on being able to motivate ourselves and our team. We'll learn some tactics and techniques for both of those things. So 3 a.m. in Japan, and I'm impressed. Thank you. How about you, Andre? Please be next.
Unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you. I spend so much time on WebEx, I have to remind myself how we do this on Zoom. So it is an absolute pleasure. I'm just going to make it very short. It is a pleasure. Charles and I, we work together and have for quite some time. And yet it is always a pleasure to have the opportunity to go ahead and not only watch you work, but also get a chance to learn a little something myself. So when it's all said and done, Charles and I are business partners in this regard. So I wanted to come here, support, and if I could be of any assistance, by all means, I'm here.
Thank you, Andre. Excellent.
You're welcome.
And Chad, since you've joined in, I'd like for you to have an opportunity to introduce yourself and your role as well.
Yeah, sure. I've got Chad Burmeister, CEO of ScaleX.ai and one of the founders of SalesClass. So excited to be here today on the second one. And I've got 3 direct sellers that are, I would say, high performers, right? We're pretty sophisticated in the hiring process. So, moving an A to an A+ is important. And then we've got a channel team of about 10 people who own their own companies that resell ScaleX. So, getting to be top of mind through channel sellers is also an important area. So I'm excited for the presentation discussion today.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Chad. I think this will be most valuable for you. So thanks again. A little bit about me, and then we'll get off of that because it's really all about you today. I have a history in industry. I started with a small company just getting started called the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company in the early 80s, where I was last global leader for the sales team for the aircraft tire division. So I managed a global team. Avocationally, while I managed that team, I taught Dale Carnegie courses for about 20 years, how to win friends and influence people. And that's where I learned to love facilitation. And I've dedicated the rest of my life to helping professionals like yourself skill up and get better at what you do. Andre and I published a book a couple of years ago called How to Sell. Imagine that, succeeding in a noble profession. And we started Sales Universe, which is an online trading academy in and of itself. And we'd love for you to go to Sales Universe and take a look and become part of our community as well. So just a shameless plug for Sales Universe. I think you'll enjoy what we have to offer. Let's get on with the training. I am really interested in knowing, first and foremost, I'm interested in knowing why we don't spend more time coaching our high performers. So go to the chat line, just type a little thought about that. Why do we not coach our high performers as much as we should? Why is that? Yeah, just type a chat. Give me a thought about that. And I'm going to share my screen here. And here we go. We don't know where to start. Nice, Dionne. Yep, Andre. They're on it. Yep. We let it, I had my first inclination when I took over a top level sales team was to let the racehorses run. Yeah, we think that they are performing great already. And, you know, I had sort of a thought that they really didn't want to be micromanaged. They knew what they were doing and they knew how to do it well. And so that was right. Yeah, Paula, thanks for your comment. And Mark, because they know everything. Exactly. Yeah, I had some that, you know, they taught me, which is good because I learned from them. And nice, Dionne, again, we're not sure where to go to up level. Yeah, if they're already doing well, where do we take it next? And this is the thing I learned about, the curious thing I learned about top level salespeople is when I needed, at the end of the month, I needed more from somebody, or I need to delegate a challenge. Who do you think I went to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to them. And guess what? They always had more in the tank. And every time I asked them when I knew they were already busy and they were already probably maxed out, they had more. And I'm going, wait a second here. If they have more, then maybe I need to find out what more means. So I began to coach them. Coaching them is a little bit different, but right now we're looking at a model that is what I call coaching in context. It's a coaching conversation model. And it's typical for any coaching session you have with anybody. We'll nuance it to high-performing salespeople, but really, I first of all wanted to break this down and say this is the model we use for all coaching conversations. So first, we introduce the situation, and we introduce the situation by establishing why we're there, what the benefit to them will be, and getting their acknowledgement that this is a good thing to talk about. So the introduced situation is a really important piece. Then we explore the situation. In other words, I'm going to ask questions to find out from them, what are their challenges? What are their payoffs? What are their benefits? What are their obstacles? What are their needs? What is going to ignite them to a higher level of performance? During that conversation, they're going to begin to develop some solutions, some things that I can provide them, or I can help them with, or things that I can direct or follow up with in the way of solutions that they're going to come up with. And then I'm going to focus on action at the end by just creating accountability by saying, how would you like for me to follow up with you? So they create the action plan, and then they create the accountability solution. So that's the coaching cycle for any coaching conversation. What do you think the biggest challenge is when you introduce or when you get into a coaching conversation with a high performer? Just type something in the chat line, and then I'm going to have you come off mute and explain it a little bit. What do you think the biggest challenge is when you sit down with them and you are about to have a coaching conversation with them? Accountability. What do you mean? What do you mean, Dionne? Accountability.
Sometimes the ideation and the plan is the fun part, right? Execution, or here's what that really means, is a different kettle of fish altogether.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's an incredible insight. I like it because accountability, usually if it's an untrained coach, we'll say, here's how I'm going to follow up with you. A trained coach says, how would you like for me to follow up with you? And I let them develop the plan for accountability. If they say, let's get together every Tuesday at 9 a.m., that goes on I said, send me an Outlook invite. That becomes an immovable object on my calendar. So they're owning it. And I love to have owners. So they're owning this whole conversation, in effect. I used to conduct coaching conversations by walking in and saying, what do you want to talk about? Guess what kind of results I got from that? Now it's very directed and focused. I have a goal in mind, but I'm not going to tell them what that goal is necessarily, but I will direct the conversation toward that goal. Nice. So Paula, you said they're not ready or willing to listen. What causes that?
Well, as soon as I come off mute, there we go. So, you know, I think when you're going into coaching a top performer, it is my belief that they say, yeah, you know, when, for example, I've got someone who is a strong performer, making all the numbers, but not getting all the calls in.
Right.
And so when we talked to him about, can you imagine where you would be if we could get your calls up to the expectation? Well, I don't need to. I'm growing. I'm growing over prior year. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. So, sometimes you have to look at it. And so I think sometimes that people are just shut off because they have a big green number.
Yeah.
Mm.
We're going to talk about that big green number and how to work through that. If they're not hitting your standards, how do we get them there? And oftentimes it starts with, as you said, they're not ready to willing to listen. It starts with how we introduce the conversation. And so we're gonna start there pretty quickly, but I wanted to address that, and I'm glad you brought it up because that is so important to make sure that right up front we're getting their buy-in to have the conversation and they feel the values there. So Mark, you said learn from experiences, ask them what and how they can do better, help brainstorm with them. So elaborate on that just a little bit, Mark, please.
Well, yeah, because, obviously these guys are experts and they're really good in selling, but, to create the learning experience is almost just ask them. They probably know some certain areas which they could have done better on the pitch. They could have presented better. Maybe they missed a topic. And I think just brainstorming and going through that with them will open up conversations, and then you can help coach them.
I love that. And here's why. I think it's brilliant. It's because usually the high performers self-correct, self-coach. They know what they did wrong. They know what their weaknesses are. They just really, unless they go home and talk to their husband or their wife, they really haven't had anybody to distill it with, maybe a peer. But to give them the opportunity to frame it with you is what I call a thinking partnership. And we're going to talk about thinking partnerships as we go through this model going forward. So thanks for that. I think you're so right on about what their mindset is and how they manage their challenges and how we help them with it. So terrific. Yeah, Chad, you said get to know their story first. Tell me about that, Chad.
Yeah, when I started, it took 20 years to figure this out, I suppose. But when I started at Ring Central, I sat down with a department of maybe 25 people and really spent 30 to 45 minutes with everybody on the team in the first week to 2 weeks. And there was a guy named Dana who played basketball and almost got, drafted by a professional NBA team. There was another guy named Josh, who was the captain of the Boston College football team. And you meet with these high performers and understand their story. Well, Dana rolled his right ankle and didn't make the cut, but he had it in him to be an ultra uber competitor. And so by connecting with him, I teared up a little bit in that conversation because you could tell he felt he lost his dreams and desires. And I could help steer him 1 degree towards, hey, I've heard these stories before in life. This one comedian named Danny Gans actually was supposed to be a big time, I think, baseball player. And then
he's the Las Vegas guy?
Yeah, the Vegas guy.
Yeah,
right?
I saw him perform.
He was fabulous. He passed away maybe 5 years ago or 7 years.
He did at 52.
But he was just an ultra performer and then ended up sitting next to another guy who blew out his knee and was supposed to be an NFL player and was like, hey, shoulda, coulda, woulda. That means it just wasn't your calling. Let's get you on the right track. So, it's understanding where they come from and where they want to go is the first approach to being able to form a good coaching plan.
That's exactly right. And Andre and I have we have a mantra as far as coaching is concerned, in that you won't get somebody's A game until you understand their why game. And the why game is what's in it for them. It could be their story, because now what you're going to do is you learn their story, you learn what motivates them, how they operate, how they satisfy their needs. And then you use that, I won't call it leverage, but you'll use it as a lever during coaching conversations and remind them of how they have achieved and accomplished and all of those other things. So I love the fact that you brought out the story, because it speaks to, motivation, because that's what we really want to do first. Let's deal with attitude and motivation up front. Okay, so thanks for your thoughts. And yeah, thinking partnership is a great term. We'll talk more about that as we get forward. So as a coach, the first thing we want to do is know what the end looks like. So I set goals for my people coming in. And this is interesting because my people hated me because not only did I give them stretch goals, I gave them stretch goals. But I did that because I was in one. You know, when companies go strategically plan, they plan toward the finances, achieving a financial objective for the corporation. So the executives are going, how can we make sure we achieve this plan? Oh yeah, let's go ahead and filter down stretch goals to everybody. So if they get 80% of their goal, we'll still achieve our corporate plan. So they're all about getting their bonus, right? So I had one salesperson who I kept giving him a stretch goal and he kept exceeding it every time. I mean, when everybody else was struggling, he just hit it. And I asked him how he did it, and he finally confessed. He said, when you give me a goal, I give myself a personal goal 10% higher. And that was his secret sauce. And I went, my goodness, that is so simple. And then all of a sudden, you create a different context. So when we keep the end in mind, we've got to know what the end is, but we also want to know, as a leader, we see the potential in others before they see it in themselves. And coaching brings that potential to reality. Now, here's something that's interesting. I've worked with A players, B players, C players, and I think you know what I mean by that. An A player is a thoroughbred. A B player is somebody who loves to come to work, does well, has work-life balance. They may not want a promotion. They may not want the big trophy, but you love them. They're the connective tissue. And C players have potential, but for whatever reason, they're not hitting their standards or yours. So when you look at, I need to get more out of each of these, who contributes to the bottom line? If I get 20% from a C player or 20% from an A player. And then I realize the biggest impact I'm going to have in the organization is working with my A players to get that 20%. Because I've got more B players, I'll work with them as well. C players, I'm going to set a standard so you can get there. I'll be with the A and B players. Come join me when you're ready. I'm not talking about a new salesperson. I'm talking about somebody who just isn't reaching their potential. So thoughts about that. What do you think about spending more time with A players to get results for the organization? Give me just a chat thought about your thinking about now, maybe new thinking about, hey, I need to spend more time with A players. What's the biggest benefit of spending more time with A players that this data seems to suggest? Go ahead and type that in, chat line, love it. 100% participation, everybody does that. Great way to leverage skills on hand, you bet. Andre, thank you. Yeah, this is a way to create results for yourself. And I'm gonna sit down with my A players first. When I have a coaching conversation, that's the first meeting I'm going to have because I really want to be able to hit my numbers too. Nice, Paula, top line growth, top line, bottom line. That's it. Keep A players engaged, Dionne, because when A players aren't engaged, they start looking around. I tell all of my teams, the grass is not greener because you grow your own grass. But I'm going to tend the grass with them, to make sure that they're not looking for greener grass somewhere else. Nice. What about moving the middles? So Paula, I like that. Moving the middles is important because I have more of them. So if I can get incremental improvement out of the middles, I'm going to have a bigger impact at the bottom line because of the fact that I've got more contributors. Yep, nice, Dionne. Reduce attrition, raise the sales. They're motivated by these things, so that's good. Mark, usually A players are working on bigger deals, so helping them is going to help your. Yes, that's right. They're the whale hunters, oftentimes. So Chad, learned years ago. There we go. You've got the data and to support this. So we're all on the same page. Love the math, Chad. Yeah, Chad's my mathematician, my data person. That's good. So let's talk about introducing the situation. We introduce the situation so we don't cause resistance. And when I'm working with any number of salespeople, mid-level, I'll say, hey, I thought we'd get together. Here's the reason we're meeting. Here's why it's good for you and us and the organization. How does that sound? When I'm meeting with top-level salespeople, they need to be stroked. So I spend a little more time up front with there's a couple of observations I want to make about your performance that just blows me away every time. And so oftentimes they need to hear this kind of reassurance, and you're the right person to give it to them. The definition of charisma is making the other person feel good about themselves in your presence. And you use this in spades when you are addressing. But now you want to talk in direct terms about why you're meeting. And why you're meeting, if it's all about getting more out of them, then open with how can we improve your results, get better results, even take this to the next level because I know it's there. So you motivate them, then you begin setting the table to explore. So that's what introducing the situation is like. Why do people resist when we introduce a coaching situation? Why do they resist? Give me a thought about that. Go ahead and type that on the chat line. Paula, why do you think we get resistance up front? You'd mentioned that before.
So
Yeah.
I think you get resistance up front because, one, people don't like to hear what they're doing wrong, right? And they don't want to hear that they could be doing more. As a lot of people feel like I'm already doing more, I'm already giving more, I'm already doing exactly what you asked me to do. And you know, you rather than thinking of it as a partnership, like you were saying, rather than going in and getting buy-in, well, tell me how you think you can do more. Tell me what tell me different strategies that you're taking. Where can we leverage some more ideas? So I think it's just a matter, like you're talking about, the conversation and how you approach it. But I feel like some people, including myself, when my boss tells me, you need to do more, sometimes you just want to pull your hair out and say, what more can I do? Right.
Yeah, so that's right. It's how you approach the situation. And oftentimes I use the model called did well, do differently. So let's talk about your last engagement. What do you think you did well? What would you do differently? I'm going to get them to speak out first. Because oftentimes, because they're high performers, they'll bring up the thing that I really wanted to address. If they don't, I'll say tell me more about that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did you feel you did with that presentation during that last? And they'll say 5, and I'll say, why did you give yourself that number? And how can you get from 5 to 6? Now I'm not speaking directly to something I'm criticizing. I'm filtering out things that I want to talk about. And it's a conversation. I'm doing 30% of the talking, they're doing 70. And so we set the table for that in a very clear, concise, and powerful way by saying just enough and no more. The purpose is, it's a sentence. The benefit to you it's a sentence. I'm going to check in with them and say, how does that sound? Would this be helpful? Because I want their thoughts. So that's it when we introduce the situation. We don't want to set up resistance or anything like that. Mark, you said feedback is hard in any situation, and a player's going to be more defensive. Yes, a player will be more defensive. They're going to try and defend why they do things the way they do things. And so we've got to set the table for the conversation by making them feel as though this is a safe conversation. Nobody's going to be criticized. We're not poking or pointing fingers at anything. This is our opportunity to really help me learn why you're so successful and how you can be even more so. So I love that. Thank you, Mark. Excellent, excellent feedback. So let's talk about how we can create an opening. This is an opportunity for you to do that. So I wanted to use this as an opportunity to prepare for an upcoming conversation with one of your direct reports. And it could be, in your situation, Paula, it could be, I think you said you have 3 leaders that you lead, as well as some individual contributors, or maybe through those leaders, individual contributors. So it might be a conversation you have with one of your leaders, where you lead by example, or it could be a conversation you have with a direct individual contributor in the inside sales team. And so how would you open that conversation so you don't cause defensiveness? It's one sentence. I'm going to go back to the, if I can, Go back to the prior slide. Use this as an example. So as you think through it, type it in the chat line. How would your opening go with this individual? We're gonna have a chance to see each of yours. So you can type them separately, type the purpose is, the benefit to you or to both of us will be, and then a simple question, how does that sound? Would that be helpful? Is what the check is. So go ahead and type that in the chat line. Let's take a look at your opening and coach it and make sure that it satisfies the simple purpose of setting the table for the upcoming conversation. This is good in preparation for a real conversation you're going to be having with somebody. So type that in the chat line now. Let's see what that looks like. And then we'll have a chance to coach to it. I'll just give you a moment right now to do that, and then we'll take a look. All right, Paula, name. Let's talk about your overall results. What is going well and what could we do better? Okay. All right, let's work with that for a second. So tell me a little bit about this person, Paula.
So a thoroughbred, always meant, like I said, always in the green, but not living up to the expectations of call volume, and probably could be doing a whole lot more. Is a little bit slower in doing quotes and things along those lines, but gets things done for the most part. But he's a senior player, so everyone looks to him, and if he's not making his calls, why isn't he getting reprimanded or talked to? So it's a catch-22. So I just wanted to open up the conversation with, hey, listen, Tom, you know, during a one-on-one with your manager, I decided to come in because I wanted to see how things are going. How are your results? You know, what are you doing well? And what are some of the things that you think you could be doing better?
Okay. Is there any, it's simple, it's one sentence. It's exactly what we're looking for from the brevity standpoint. Is there anything in there that could cause resistance? I mean, you know this person.
I think just asking the simple question of, is there anything that could be going better? He'll get really defensive right off the bat. Yep. Well, is there something I should be looking at?
So what you could do better is the suggestion that he's not doing good enough.
Right.
So how could we restate that so it doesn't cause resistance?
Is there anything that you're having trouble with?
Okay.
Is there anything that you're finding challenging?
Okay. There's some interesting words we learn, like the word, how do we elevate your excellent performance?
Ah, okay.
Which says that you're doing great. There's another level. There's another gear for you. I see it. And I think you do too. Let's talk about that. You know, so it's just a matter of was that helpful, by the way?
That was great. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. All right, nice. Let's look at yours, Mark. Hey, I'd like to discuss the last sales presentation and wanted to hear from you how you think it went. Nice. It's brief, sets the table great. That's terrific. I'm not seeing anything in there that's going to suggest that they might get defensive. Are they the kind of person, Mark, that would immediately go to the negative place or the positive place?
Well, I think what he would do first is he'd probably just comment like how well it went and how you know the conversations went and things like that. The real issue with this person is sometimes in presentations, especially if you have a team there, he talks too much.
Okay.
So in a way he's almost selling himself more than selling the team, which is going to be actually work.
Yep.
And you know, sometimes it's hard to bring that up because he is a great conversationalist and does develop relationships real well, which is key to selling.
Sure.
But you know, it's not easy to tell him to shut up.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Got to do that delicately.
I see. Yeah. So how can you say what you just said to me in 10 words or less? Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I would hope he would talk first, and then I could say, "Hey, you know, how can we get to it so that we are involving the team in this team selling scenario?" I mean, I'm not sure exactly. Depends on how he addresses it.
Yeah. I mean, the suggestion here is that sometimes with top performers, you need to be direct, and sometimes the best way to be direct is to say, how can you say that in 10 words or less? It's just it's an in the moment sort of a reminder that being brief is powerful, because when we do that, we choose fewer, more powerful words, and then just reward him. He does that. So I love the situation, because I had a salesperson who was excellent, but wow, just loved to hear himself talk, and started getting on a roll, and that was it. So it's a challenge. Nice. Okay. So this is a real situation. I love it. I'm glad we're working on those. So Chad, reason for weekly one-on-one to identify ways to close bigger opportunities faster. You'll find my one-on-ones aren't forecasting calls. They are collaborative sessions to help us find and win more deals together. Yeah, nice. One-on-ones are different. You're right. From the standpoint of, let's work on that one big thing that we need to work on together. So what is the one big thing that this person you're thinking about needs to work on, Chad?
Well, I'm just thinking of bringing on new folks. So I didn't actually identify an individual.
Sure.
This is more when someone comes into the business.
Okay.
That's usually how I describe the weekly one-on-ones.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Weekly one-on-ones are an excellent idea. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Excellent. We're off to a good place. I see that we have the purpose. Mark, what would be the benefit that you would establish? I'm just going to work with you on this one thing, and then we'll move on. What would be the benefit for this individual to be able to be more clear, concise, and powerful?
Well, like you said, though, from the client's perspective and executive perspective, you know, they always like to get to the point really quickly.
Yep.
You know, get to the value statements really quickly. So by rambling on and talking and throwing too much detail at them can actually sometimes hurt the sales cycle more than anything else.
Okay, so there's a consequence to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, clients, customers, they want you to say just enough and no more to get their commitment. And so we need to speak in sound bites. I think it's a great approach.
Well, and also, when I was talking to him, I go, if the client starts talking, you're going to learn more information. And then if they do ask you a detailed question, then you know they're into it, and you can start talking and answering.
That's great advice. I can tell you're already an excellent coach. The reason your people perform well is probably because of the way you coach them. So terrific. Thank you, Mark. Well, this introduced the situation, and that gave us a chance to really kind of practice that. So next we come to explore the situation. After we've set the table with purpose, benefit, check, then we form a thinking partnership. And when you hear the word thinking partner, what comes to mind? Go ahead and go to the chat line and just type that in. What is a thinking partner? What comes to mind when you hear that? Thinking partner. Collaboration, exactly. Thank you, Andre. Yeah, someone to talk it out with. That's right. Yeah. That's exactly, I think that's the essence of it. Brainstorming, and the rules of brainstorming, Paula, are what? What is the rule of brainstorming? Yeah, you can come off mute, Paula.
No rules.
No rules, right?
No judgment. No rules. No judgment.
All answers are right.
Yep.
And you want to, while all answers could be right with a thinking partner, I also want them to challenge my ideas. I'd like for them to poke at it, create a little conflict, be the devil's advocate. I like also for a thinking partner to be somewhat critical. I like that, but the rules around that, and that's again the no rules around this conversation, is you can be critical, you can challenge me. There are no rules. So that's what a thinking partner is. And what we do is we form thinking partnerships with our top salespeople. We have a conversation with them as a peer, not as a direct report. We're not using power or authority. We're using, I want to get your thoughts about this because I value your judgment. Now we're finding ourselves on the same level as them. We do that through questioning, and we use what we call thoughtful questions. Thoughtful questions are more powerful than just open-ended questions. They're questions where we get people to speculate or analyze things or make comparisons or set goals, set priorities, express feelings. And so it's a very unique, different kind of question here. We're not used to asking them. If you had a child coming home from school, let's say that they're doing that again, coming home from school and they walk in through the front door, what would you ask them coming in? What would you ask them, Mark?
I do this with my kids all the time. I go, what did you learn today?
What did you learn today? Which is really a thoughtful question. I mean, oftentimes parents will go, how was your day? And they go, fine, whatever, because they're kids. And then conversation over. But I like your question, which is, what did you learn today? What's 3 things you learned today? What's another thoughtful question you could ask your child coming through the door? Just type it out.
Asking 3 things, now you're pushing it.
I am. But now what I'm saying is you want to have a conversation, so ask a question in the way that you're going to have one.
Yeah.
So go ahead and type any thought about that. It'd be a thoughtful question for your child coming through the door. What would that be? Dionne, just speak it out. What would you say? Thoughtful.
I asked, what did you like most about today?
Nice, that's it.
Or if there was something you could redo today, what would you redo?
Oh, thoughtful. Yeah, what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day?
I was just watching a movie and they were saying, what was your high and what was your low today?
Ooh, there we go. Yeah, those are thoughtful questions. We're not used to asking them.
Yeah.
And usually you immediately get a little bit of silence because they have to think about it. They have to think about the answer, but then carve out some time because you're about to have a conversation. So at this point in the workshop, what I'd usually do is I'd get you into pairs and groups and you develop questions that you would ask this high-performing salesperson in a coaching conversation. Right now, I just want you to type, what would be the first person you would ask them related to the purpose or your objective of the session? What would be the first person you would ask? Or first, what would be the first question you would ask this person? What would it be? And make it thoughtful to really ignite a conversation, to drive it in the direction that you want it to go. Type that out. I like the 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did you feel like you did in that last presentation? Then they give me a number. It's not about the number. I said, why did you give yourself that number? What would it take for you to get from a 5 to a 6 or the next number? I like that usually as a way of opening a conversation. I think it works great. Nice. Most important skill you've learned in the last 3 months. Wow. So tell me why, Dionne, that's the question you would ask.
I think to your point, Charles, getting people to, especially high performers, right? A little bit of that introspection. I think high performers are continual learners anyway. So making sure to ask questions that invite the pause and kind of the, and a little bit of introspection and retrospection.
Exactly. Yeah. And let the silence work. Let it marinate.
Yeah.
As they're thinking of it. And oftentimes, when we're coaching frontline salespeople, they may not give us an answer and we may have to prime the pump. With high performing salespeople, they will have an answer.
Yeah.
Because that's just how they're made. That's their DNA. Nice. So Mark, you said, how could you improve your pitch and make it shorter. Okay, so nice, we're on track with the goal. The question, in a very unobtrusive way, suggests the change you want to make. So tell me more about why this question would be impactful for you.
Well, again, yeah, I'm trying not to raise the defenses, right? But in a way, it's kind of saying, you know, your pitch is good, but how can we make it short? You know, because execs have low patience, you know, maybe kind of put it in that way, as opposed to, you know, giving more time to other folks to talk, which is really the mission statement.
Yep. I like it. I like the fact that, you know, you're avoiding the defensiveness. Just a comment. One is we inspect what we expect. So we're watching for them to offer things that are shorter, and then we reward it. I love the fact that you stated that really concise. Keep that up. That's great. My first coaching event was my first day at work at Goodyear. I walked across this big bullpen full of gray desks, walked toward my first boss, Ralph Belfilio. He stuck out his hand. I shook it, and he said, "That won't work." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, it wasn't a firm handshake. You didn't look in my eyes. You mumbled your name. Let's try this again." And everybody's looking. I mean, it's just a wide open thing. Everybody's watching this. But they all knew Ralph. I didn't. So I was a little embarrassed, so we did it again. He said, "Better, let's do it again." We did it again. He said, "That's it, now keep that up." Well, guess what he would do like once a week? He would walk up and he'd shake my hand, and then he'd tell me whether he approved or not. That one lesson was probably the most important lesson, business lesson I ever had. And the fact that he didn't let up, that he stayed on it and kept inspecting it, really helped me to understand the value of coaching at a high level. So don't let him slip. Make sure that Mark, you stay on it. That's great. All right, Andre had to go, so Andre has another client call. So I'm glad he joined in so you all could meet him. Terrific. Thoughts about thoughtful questions. Prepare them in advance. Use them. Yasuo, use them prepare them, write them down, and use them when it's strategic to do that, so that you get the right responses, the responses that you're looking for from these conversations. So just some examples of thoughtful questions here. I just thought I'd put them up here. It's a busy slide. It violates all the rules for slides, but I'll just have you read a couple of them. I'm not going to leave this up long. We just don't have that much time. But it just gives you a sense of how to construct thoughtful questions. Usually when we approach salespeople, or when salespeople approach clients, they want to understand what the client's needs are. So the questions are all about needs. So when we're asking questions, we're trying to understand where they are now and where they're going and what they're trying to achieve and what are the barriers and obstacles to that and how can they overcome that and what have they done to overcome it and what is the payoff or the biggest benefit if they achieve it, what's the consequence if they don't. And those are all thoughtful questions, and we use them to explore needs with our customers. We also use them to explore needs with our salespeople, mainly our high-performing salespeople, and we are being an example of conducting a sales conversation during our coaching sessions. So we already did the exercise, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we had a chance to, type a question. And how do we make a conversation and not an interrogation out of a coaching event? We use what is called response generators, which is, "Oh, tell me more." "Well, that was helpful. Explain." Those are response generators. And we throw confetti. And throwing confetti is, I love the way you stated that. It really helped me understand more about your approach. That was genius. The way you said that, it helped me think deeper, different about that particular topic. And so what I'm doing is rewarding what they're saying, which invites them to open up and share more. We're driving the conversation to consider solutions. Who's considering the solutions? I mean, it's going to be them. And we want to make sure that they come up with the answers, with the ideas. What are some of the solutions that you might have for this person that you're about to have a conversation with? Go ahead and type that in the chat line. What are you thinking in terms of solutions going forward in your mind? What would you suggest to them? Type that in the chat line. You know, for you, Mark, the solution is more concise, clear, powerful, sound bites, put it on a bumper sticker. Express it in concrete, short, valuable language. Nice. How about you, Mark? What would be a solution that you would suggest? Go ahead and come off mute. That's fine. You can do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the solution is, yeah, be more concise, you know, get other people in your conversation. You can recommend that, but I almost am leading into your last category, which is actions. Like, you know, what would he do to try to implement this, you know, this topic, right? What actions could he take, or what actions can we do to help him take those?
Nice.
The end of like a coaching conversation, the hardest part is to kind of come up with some good action items and how you can review and then go from there. Because sometimes you leave abruptly with not really stating those clearly.
You want to concrete. You want to filter their proposed solutions, maybe add your own. You earn the right to do that. And then identify very specifically, here's the actions we're going to take. Here's the, and whenever you have an action plan, it's, here's the timetable, here's what resources are needed or budgets, or you identify what it's going to take to get done. And then how would you like for me to follow up with you? Have them create the plan. You know, if it's touch points, have them do it and send it to you. If it's a report, have them create the report and do it and provide it to you. So these are the kind of things that we want to do at the end of the conversation. So nice. I mean, it's a typical coaching conversation that we use for any coaching event, but for high performers, it's different because we need to spend a little time up front expressing our value to them, you know, how valuable they are, building the rapport, building the relationship, raising their positive attitude, and then open the conversation up as a thinking partner to get their ideas about things that we'd like to work on while we're driving it toward that one thing that we'd love for them to improve, get them to come up with solutions, identify actions, and have them create accountability. Simple as that. I'm really interested in knowing as we close it out, because I know I wanted to give Dionne a chance also to give some finishing words. What's one thing you're taking away that you'll deploy immediately from the session? How about it, Mark, please?
I mean, I like your process here, like situation, because that, you know, pull in something they've just did. So I think that's real good. And then have them explore things. So I like your 4 kind of scenarios right here. Getting them to talk and consider solutions, and then you can brainstorm together on what actions they can take next. So I do like these 4 elements.
Nice. Thank you. Excellent. I'm glad you're taking that away. We keep it simple, and it allows you to have a nice step-by-step approach to the conversation. Yasuo, do you have a thought about something you'd like to take away and use immediately with your conversations?
Yes, thank you for giving me the coaching process and insight about it.
Yes.
I need to run it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we keep the process simple, and we should keep the conversations focused on that one big, most important thing, dealing with whatever they bring up as well. Thank you. How about you, Chad? What's the one takeaway for you?
You know, if you were to put this into the context of what does it take to be a great seller and meet with your customers, you could actually rename the slide. And so I think a lot of managers and leaders forget that their salespeople are now the customer. And so using this level of alignment, we got to this place for a reason, because we were super sellers in most cases.
Yep.
And now we need to take that super selling philosophy and apply it to the people that we lead. And it's very easy to forget that and not know that in the first place. So I think using every tactic and strategy that you've outlined today, you know, it's dead on. And it's a great reminder to do it the right way. So I appreciate you investing your time today.
Well said. Excellent. Yeah, we are emulating a sales process in a way as we coach. Nice. Andre, are you still with us, or did you have to jump? You may have had to leave.
Hey, Charles. No, I did leave, but I came back. I did not want to interrupt. Things are going so darn well.
One thing you're taking away that you're going to deploy immediately. I know you're familiar with this already.
Well, there is no doubt. Let me go ahead and put my camera back on. So not only am I familiar with the content, but still, my goodness, you still left me with lots of nuggets to go ahead and dig into. I loved your thought process of go ahead and throw confetti. We certainly want to make sure that that our folks recognize that when they are moving in the right direction, we celebrate the fact that they are, and we reinforce the fact that they are. I think that certainly does keep us moving. That was a big one for me. And sometimes we get real excited on the inside, but we don't show that level of excitement to them.
Yep.
Right? So we like what they've heard, but we haven't told them that.
Yep.
So that's a biggie.
Awesome.
Appreciate you, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
Dionne, please, I'll give you the
Thanks,
last
Chad.
word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I think, Charles, what really stands out for me, and a lot of the things that you talked about, were the boundaries, right? And the guidelines and the nuance. So what you were talking about with your C players, as far as, hey, here's what you got. When you're ready to join us over here, go ahead, right? All that good stuff. And so, and then for your B players and your A players, right? And so I think sometimes leadership is about setting those boundaries, those guidelines, and making sure that our own tank is filled, because we are the immovable object. We are the rock that our team should rely on in a healthy, functional way at the end of the day, right? So recognizing the systemization to be put in place, number one, that allows for some of these conversations to take place, right, within that system, because it's really about getting people better at the end of the day. So I thought that was really impactful.
Wonderful. Well said. I'll let you have the last word to close us out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Charles, simply to echo what Chad said, thank you so much for being here and investing your time with us. Everybody, thank you for joining another Sales Class live session. We put the link to join the platform in the chat box, so go ahead. We encourage you to do that. It's $1 for the first month. To access the live sessions after that, it's $24.99 a month per person. And more to come from Charles. I think one of the things, the last thing I will say is, with our first Sales Class Live, one of the things that we're thinking about doing, and I'd love everybody's thought on this, is kind of a where are they now follow-up conversation. So for those that were able to join us today, and even last Friday, we did demo training. You know, Charles, if you're willing, we'd love to have you back in 3 or 4 months, right? Depending if that's the right timeline. But Mark and Andre, and we'll invite Paula and Yasuo and Chad, right? Given the fact that Charles said, hey, what are you going to take away and use? I think it'd be fun to kind of have a where are they now? How did everything go type discussion.
Love it. Yeah. Thanks again for the opportunity. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next live session next month. I'll be doing one on sales process. So.
That is true. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We hope everybody has a great day, and we'll chat with you soon.
Got it.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Charles.
Bye now.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.